years is unless it forwards the climate agenda, we're not doing it. Like, that's extremism. Just
no, that's absolutely not true at all. No such mandate exists.
Yes,
no such mandate
Chuck
exists.
Schumer said that out loud just the other day. We're not for infrastructure unless it comports with the climate agenda. And it's like, really? How about you just keep my bridges from falling down?
I think most people in America support a good, smart infrastructure bill. It's going to put people to work and get dominoes out of the
Good. Well, let's put you in charge. You can take Schumer, please. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
It's good to see you. Some of this is pretty radical. Is it a winning message for Democrats? The Federalist Molly Hemingway has been considering that and joins us tonight. Can you win on this stuff? I think maybe you, by the way, I'll just say my bias at first. Things that seem crazy seem normal if you say them enough. So I'm not sure what the answer is. What do you think?
And also it's true that a lot of ideas that people have been putting out there for the last few decades aren't actually that great, and it's good to have a fresh new idea.
Yes, I do agree with that.
In this case, we're actually dealing with extremely radical ideas that would actually harm people's liberty as well. I mean, we're talking about how unrealistic it is to ban cars or to ban airplanes within 12 years. It would destroy the economy. It would destroy job creation, and that has real effects on people. And so I'm not sure it would go over so well for Democrats to be pushing those ideas. You have something like Medicare for All, which at least sounds good. It's more of a sentiment than an actual policy idea.
Right.
You talk about destroying the economy or banning cars or doing these things that are that have real problems. I don't think there's much of a market for that. It doesn't make sense for people why they should accept something that would tack them to high heaven, destroy any chance that their children will have jobs, and for what?
So at a certain point, like if you have someone who's telling you we need to literally destroy the most powerful sector in our economy, the energy sector, radically increase the scope of entitlements, and make everyone on planet Earth eligible for those entitlements, what you're really talking about is someone who's advocating for the destruction of your country.
Yeah, it's a tremendous threat to our system of government and to our country, and it's a good way of thinking about what's happening for the Democratic Party right now. Obviously, they did well in the midterms; they took back the House, but a lot of the excitement that's happening in their party is with people who have ideas that they haven't particularly thought through. This was something we saw when Bernie Sanders was running, that even the New York Times said his policy proposals weren't very well thought through, and compared to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, he was brilliant, in thinking through these policies.
I think they're very well thought through. I think these policies are designed to destroy the country. I think they're being advocated by people who hate the country. And I think the aim is really clear. If you love the country, you wouldn't propose this.
They appeal to some people. They're not generally appealing.
No, that's totally true. Molly, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Well, news for you, minor detail, as we await the president's speech, we've learned that the Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry, former governor of Texas, has been named tonight's designated survivor. That means he's the one cabinet secretary who will sit out the speech. The people who run the country are gathered in one large group under the dome tonight, but not Rick Perry. The White House, by the way, says the president will focus on national security in the speech tonight. There's no shortage of topics he can address: the proposed withdrawal from Syria, the peace talks in Afghanistan, the status of North Korea's nuclear program. Those are just three of them. Brian D. Wright is a Democrat who served in the Central Intelligence Agency and now sits on our set frequently. Good to see you.
Good evening.
So if you were scripting this speech, Brian Dean Wright, for the president, which of these would you hit hardest?
I would have him focus on China, because what I certainly know from talking to folks in the military and the intelligence community, we are already in a low-grade war against the Chinese, and that needs to be framed to the American people. They need to understand what we face and how hard it's going to be. And then they need to understand that that's why we are engaged in this trade war, which by the way has been pretty darn successful. So I would want him to focus on that particular piece. The second, I want to really hone in and talk about why we need to untangle ourselves from some of these wars that we've been involved in, because it no longer serves the national interest, or we just can't get the job done, right? So we've seen this in Afghanistan, around about $1 trillion of spending, including $8 billion for an Afghani Air Force that doesn't particularly function, right? And yet we can't find $5 billion to fund a wall, right? So we need to frame some of these mistakes, some of these challenges in that way. We need to talk about Syria as well, which you referenced earlier. And we need to have a very clear understanding that 2,000 troops is not going to solve the Syrian crisis. So I would say those three, and certainly North Korea, which we can talk about as well, would round out my big concerns that I want him to express to the American people.
But China would be the center of it, you said. And I'm wondering, because the points you made about China and the points the president often makes about China are hard to dispute. They're our greatest geostrategic rival. They spy on us from any other country. They take a lot of our industrial secrets and use them to beat us in the marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that he will find sympathetic ears among any Democrats in the room when and if he says that?
Well, I sure hope not. Certainly as an American, definitely as a Democrat, because there is no real space, or there shouldn't be in the party, for having a compassionate or understanding perspective for the Chinese government, or quite frankly for the Chinese people, other than they are existing under the tyranny, under the yoke of this communist regime, and they have for many years, and that needs to be part of that focus as well, reminding the American people that the over 1 billion folks are suffering under a communist regime.
Yeah. That's something you rarely hear, but I agree with you completely. Brian D. Rector, great to talk to you tonight. Thank you.
Likewise, brother.
Well, dozens of Democrats in Congress have said that they would gladly support impeachment of the president. Some of them are there tonight, some of them are not. Will there be surprises for us as we watch? You may have noticed that many women in the room are wearing white this evening. Why are they doing that? And Henry has the answer to almost any question you could conceivably ask, and he joins us now to answer a few.
Tucker, that photo on the left shows it very well. A lot of rank-and-file House Democrats there wearing white, and we're told it's because they've organized with Speaker Nancy Pelosi a so-called white out. They did some of this as well.
Let me just interrupt. Will they be singing tonight?
So I have not been able to confirm any specific songs.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that they did this during the Kavanaugh hearings a little bit as well. It's a sign, they say, these Democrats, of supporting all women. And they want to show the president clearly, who will be looking straight at them, that they support women. Now, it's interesting because we've got excerpts from the president's remarks, and at one point, he says all Americans can be proud that we have more women in the workforce than ever before. So that's only one quick excerpt. So clearly the White House knew maybe something like this was coming, and he's going to address it, that he supports women in the workforce, he wants equal pay, those kinds of things, to just kind of say, look, this is for show, obviously. And it also is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of the organizers of this, because she's on social media posing with her guest tonight, who she gave a ticket to, and it is the activist who confronted Senator Jeff Flake in that elevator during the Kavanaugh confirmation process over sexual assault issues. So this is
the one who yelled at Flake and scared him,
and had a video camera in tow, essentially, and it went viral and all of that. And so political points are being made. They're also going to have elsewhere in the House gallery former employees of various Trump golf courses who are found to potentially have problems with their legal status. Now,
the Democrats are bringing people here illegally who worked at Trump's.
They're now bringing them inside the chamber, I suppose, illegally. Yes, to make a political point. The White House will push back in part by having ICE agents in the chamber to say these are some of the folks that Democrats have said they wanted to obliterate. They want to get rid of these.
Does anybody in Washington make straightforward points anymore about policy, or is everything a symbolic display?
It's pretty rare, as you know. I mean, in fact, we have this bipartisan conference committee that's supposed to solve all the problems around immigration. They've met once, maybe twice. Initially, the Democrats there said, everything is on the table. That was the quote of the Democratic chair, Nina Lowey. Within about 24 hours, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, who you see front and center, said, wall's not on the table, no money for the wall. So to your question about symbolism, they say everything's on the table on immigration and border security. Within 24 hours, the Speaker of the House says no.
And Henry, thank you for that. As always, we've got about 1:30 before the president's speech. We're going to hand it over. And so, of course, we've asked Britt Hume to come back and sum it up for us tonight. Britt?
Well, it's hard to summarize a speech you haven't heard yet, but
it was a trick question.
Yeah, it does seem to me that what the president says tonight will turn out to be less than these speeches. You know, I mean, this is like the 43rd that I've covered in one way or another, and they rarely produce memorable moments for more than a few days. And I don't know that this will be any different. And I think coming up are two things that will turn out to be more important for this presidency and its future prospects. One of them, of course, is whether he can get out of this shutdown business that he's facing once again with some money for a wall and a deal that he can claim as a victory. And the second thing is he needs to make a deal with China on trade that will take the China standoff out of the danger range for the U.S. economy and give him a better chance of having this economy still going briskly along when his re-election comes around next year. And I think those two things rank very high. It'll be interesting to hear what he says about those two issues. It'll be interesting to see if, in an effort to make a deal, he extends further concessions or suggests the possibility, at least, of further concessions to the Democrats on border security and immigration, where he's got a lot of room to move there, and I think he'd be inclined to do it if he thought he was going to get a reception.
The China deal is the key. You hear it all the time, but not on TV. Brigham, thank you so much. We'll be back tomorrow. Our coverage continues. The State of the Union with Brett and Martha here in Washington. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 Eastern. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Tucker. We are now just minutes away from President Trump's State of the Union address. Always a big moment here in Washington, but for this president, this moment with a new Democrat-controlled House and with President Trump already looking ahead to 2020, it's a very big moment. Good evening. I'm Brett Baer.
Indeed it is. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. So the president is now in the Capitol building. We watched his motorcade moments ago, ready to deliver the third address to Congress as president of the United States. This speech, as you may remember, was supposed to take place a week ago, pushed back because of the partial government shutdown.
That shutdown sure to come up as Republicans and Democrats continue negotiations over future funding, border security, obviously. As you look at Brett Kavanaugh, the new Supreme Court justice there, as the Supreme Court sitting there next to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We're told President Trump will make this a unity theme in this first speech to a divided government.
Let's bring in our panel. Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill and co-host of The Five. Laura Ingraham, host of The Ingraham Angle. Chris Wallace, host of Fox News Sunday.
And Dana Perino, host of The Daily Briefing. Chris, first to you. Your thoughts on this moment?
Well, I know there's been a lot of talk about unity. The White House keeps talking about it. I am highly skeptical about this. And to just give you one quick example, the guests up in the gallery, the president has invited relatives of people who were killed by illegal immigrants. Some of the Democrats have invited people who worked for the Trump clubs who were in fact hired when they were illegal immigrants. That gives me an indication there isn't going to be a lot of unity tonight.
We're looking at Joe Manchin shaking hands with the Chief Justice and Justice Elena Kagan. Laura.
I think this is a speech about keeping it going. The last 2 years, despite Mueller, despite the Southern District of New York, myriad of investigations, the president, you saw Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kennedy, Justice Kavanaugh, excuse me, that's his lasting legacy. That's the court is it. I mean, impressive array of appellate court nominees last week and this week nominated by this president. And the president, I think tonight is going to say, look at what we've done. We're just getting going. Incredible economy, USMCA, NAFTA, of course, Keystone Pipeline, criminal justice reform, who are also represented in the gallery tonight, people who've gotten second chances in life. So while it's cynical, I think, we have unity, it's Washington. He's reaching across the aisle, I think, in his own way. And the Democrats are in resist, revolt, and racializing politics mode.
Moment here is Melania Trump, the First Lady of the United States, has entered the chamber. Standing ovation for her as everybody turned around to address the First Lady. She walked in, and all of the white that you see among the new members of Congress is for suffragist kind of white dress, but also for economic empowerment for women. Dana, your thoughts on tonight?
Well, no matter what the Democrats try to do tonight, this is a presidential moment. So he gets the applause, he will get the moment, he has the floor. And what I see in the excerpt so far is that the challenge here is how can you, as Laura said, keep it going, but also describe new problems and offer new, bold solutions. And there are some of those in here tonight. I really like in this excerpt, he talks about a new standard of living for the 21st century. And no one has really articulated that yet. They've talked around the edges of it, but we'll see what he says in full.
Well, I think what we got tonight is the start of the 2020 election. I think that what you're seeing here is a response to the shutdown that drove down the president's poll numbers to the point where this morning in the Wall Street Journal they're saying it's going to be very difficult for this president to be reelected. Part of the solution that they propose is he's got to reach out. He's got to rebuild not only his base, which has gone down slightly, but he's got to do something more in terms of reaching out to independent voters. So tonight, you have two audiences. In a polarized America, you have, I think, Democrats who want to hear talk about something to do with infrastructure, something to do with health care in specific, something to do with helping our economy, especially in terms of the middle class. And I think for Republicans, they want to hear about the wall, illegal immigration, terror. So he's got two big audiences. But for him, he's got to build up his numbers to make himself credible to fellow Republicans, especially in the Senate, who look like they may be breaking away.
The president's cabinet, there you see the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, Ben Carson there. The designated survivor tonight, the Energy Secretary, Rick Perry. There you see the acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker, as the cabinet comes in.
Let's take a moment to listen to the action down on the floor as we pause for the top of the hour here. President Trump is just minutes away, and our special coverage of tonight's State of the Union address continues in just a few moments.
A live look at the U.S. Capitol, a beautiful evening here in Washington after a run of cold, bitter weeks, both in terms of weather and politics. Now looking live inside the House chamber. We're just moments away from President Trump and tonight's State of the Union address. Good evening again from Washington. I'm Brett Baer.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. So any moment now, President Trump will be announced on the House floor with the familiar call of the Sergeant at Arms. He will make his way down the aisle, greeted by lawmakers. Everybody always sort of scrambling for that position to shake the president's hand. Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the aisle as he will move his way through the chamber in just a few moments.
Then he'll lay out this agenda, talk to lawmakers and to you, the American people, talking about what he's accomplished and he wants to accomplish as you look at the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is on the North Lawn with a quick preview of what we can expect to hear. John.
Brett, Martha, good evening to you. For all the talk of unity at the White House today about the State of the Union, there is an issue that causes a lot of division that the president will hammer home tonight, and that is on immigration. The president will say that the United States has a moral obligation to provide for the lives and jobs of its citizens, not those from other countries. The president will also say that immigration really illuminates the divide between working class Americans and the political elite who often themselves hide behind armed guards and walls. The president will seek to find common ground on issues of rebuilding America's crumbling infrastructure and lowering the cost of prescription drugs. In a nod to foreign policy, we expect that he is going to announce that he is going to have his next summit with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, February 27th and 28th, the location, to the country, to be Vietnam. We have not been told the city specifically, but we're being led to believe that that will be denied. The president will also say that great nations do not fight endless wars, and not what's going on in Afghanistan and his desire to pull out of there at some point and his desire to withdraw U.S. troops from Syria. So it's a speech that encompasses a number of different themes. Some of them he hopes will bring the country together, but others by their very nature may keep the country apart. Brett and Martha?
John, thank you. As you look at the First Lady anxiously looking on, a different look, obviously, to this State of the Union with the new Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. She's been in that position before, but now she will be over the shoulder of President Donald Trump in a divided government. As you saw, Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, he's been working on the China issue, the negotiations with China, and that will be a big event as we wait for the Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving, to make his historic announcement.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
This is the moment, Martha, that he was hoping for, delayed by 1 week because of the government shutdown. It's hard to look at the pomp and circumstance of this moment and not think that this is a big moment for any president every year.
And you think about the discussions that were had then, should he do it in front of the Senate? Should he potentially do it at some other venue? And it kind of, when you watch this, you realize that you want to wait the week, you want to do it the way it's supposed to be done in front of a joint session of Congress, the members of the Supreme Court, the cabinet, really the largest gathering of its kind of all of the people of government that the president will address, and of course the people at home as well. So he's getting that moment, 1 week delayed, and there's Nancy Pelosi clapping as the president walks in. They've had a lot of differences over the past week.
Dana, you've been on the other side of this, setting up a president walking down this aisle.
Brett, in particular, it was George W. Bush in 2007 who was the first to ever say, as president, Madam Speaker, in order to introduce the speech. And now you have Nancy Pelosi back at the helm.
A few of us were invited to a session with Nancy Pelosi on the record off camera this afternoon, and I asked her, had she thought at all, because it's going to be an interesting thing for the next hour or so. We're going to see the president speaking with Nancy Pelosi right over his left shoulder. I said, have you thought at all about your demeanor? She said, I haven't given it any thought at all. And then she proceeded to say, in effect, she had given it thought. She said, I am going to accord him the respect of the office that he holds, not the president, not Donald Trump, but I'm going to give respect to the office of the presidency. And she said, when it comes to the people in the caucus, the House will be in order. If somebody is not going to be respectful of the president, we've made it clear you shouldn't be in the chamber.
Well,
I think this, again, boiling this 2 years down to a speech and forecasting forward, 400,000 manufacturing jobs, blue-collar wages rising for the first time in like 18 years at a median level. He's gonna tout that this is an economy for all people, and we want to expand it, forging new political alliances, both on issues like trade and his non-interventionist foreign policy. There's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of meat in there that traditionally more left-leaning legislators would find attractive. So I think he's going to try to open that up tonight as well.
One quickly.
Well, I think what's interesting, by the way, I just noticed on the walk down, he went pretty quickly. A lot of the people who typically are the hangers on.
Take their time,
yeah. They weren't there today, a little different. I will say that Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, already said the State of the Union America is not what the president will say. We're in need of a repair job, and he's talked about the failing economy for the middle class, health care, chaos under Trump, foreign policy, uncertain. But I think the president is going to assert that he does have a vision, he knows a pathway forward in order to try again to re-energize his base in the aftermath of the shutdown and the fact that his poll numbers have gone down.
It's a challenge for Democrats too, because there has to be some effort to get something done. It can't just be stepping up and saying, I'm opposed to Donald Trump, and they know that.
I think that's right, and I think that that's what you're going to see from Pelosi is the talk about infrastructure.
The 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States, and my fellow Americans, we meet tonight at a moment of unlimited potential. As we begin a new Congress, I stand here ready to work with you to achieve historic breakthroughs for all Americans. Millions of our fellow citizens are watching us now gathered in this great chamber, hoping that we will govern not as two parties, but as one nation. The agenda I will lay out this evening is not a Republican agenda or a Democrat agenda. It's the agenda of the American people. Many of us have campaigned on the same core promises to defend American jobs and demand fair trade for American workers, to rebuild and revitalize our nation's infrastructure, to reduce the price of health care and prescription drugs, to create an immigration system that is safe, lawful, modern, and secure, and to pursue a foreign policy that puts America's interest first. There is a new opportunity in American politics if only we have the courage together to seize it. Victory is not winning for our party. Victory is winning for our country. This year, America will recognize two important anniversaries that show us the majesty of America's mission and the power of American pride. In June, we mark 75 years since the start of what General Dwight D. Eisenhower called the Great Crusade, the Allied liberation of Europe in World War II. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, 15,000 young American men jumped from the sky and 60,000 more stormed in from the sea to save our civilization from tyranny. Here with us tonight are three of those incredible heroes. Private First Class Joseph Riley, Staff Sergeant Irving Locker, and Sergeant Herman Zaitchik. Gentlemen, we salute you. In 2019, we also celebrate 50 years since brave young pilots flew 250,000 miles through space to plant the American flag on the face of the moon. Half a century later, we are joined by one of the Apollo 11 astronauts who planted that flag, Buzz Aldrin. Thank you, Buzz. This year, American astronauts will go back to space on American rockets. In the 20th century, America saved freedom, transformed science, redefined the middle class, and when you get down to it, there's nothing anywhere in the world that can compete with America. Now we must step boldly and bravely into the next chapter of this great American adventure. And we must create a new standard of living for the 21st century. An amazing quality of life for all of our citizens is within reach. We can make our community safer, our families stronger, our culture richer, our faith deeper, and our middle class bigger and more prosperous than ever before. But we must reject the politics of revenge, resistance, and retribution, and embrace the boundless potential of cooperation, compromise, and the common good. Together we can break decades of political stalemate. We can bridge old divisions, heal old wounds, build new coalitions, forge new solutions, and unlock the extraordinary promise of America's future. The decision is ours to make. We must choose between greatness or gridlock, results or resistance, vision or vengeance, incredible progress or pointless destruction. Tonight, I ask you to choose greatness. Over the last 2 years, my administration has moved with urgency and historic speed to confront problems neglected by leaders of both parties over many decades. In just over 2 years since the election, we have launched an unprecedented economic boom, a boom that has rarely been seen before. There's been nothing like it. We have created 5.3 million new jobs, and importantly added 600,000 new manufacturing jobs, something which almost everyone said was impossible to do. But the fact is, we are just getting started. Wages are rising at the fastest pace in decades and growing for blue-collar workers who I promised to fight for. They're growing faster than anyone else thought possible. Nearly 5 million Americans have been lifted off food stamps. The U.S. economy is growing almost twice as fast today as when I took office. And we are considered far and away the hottest economy anywhere in the world. Not even close. Unemployment has reached the lowest rate in over half a century. African American, Hispanic American, and Asian American unemployment have all reached their lowest levels ever recorded. unemployment of Americans with disabilities has also reached an all-time low. More people are working now than at any time in the history of our country. 157 million people at work. We passed a massive tax cut for working families and doubled the child tax credit. We virtually ended the estate tax, or death tax, as it is often called, on small businesses, for ranches, and also for family farms. We eliminated the very unpopular Obamacare individual mandate penalty. Patients access to life-saving cures. We passed, very importantly, right to try. My administration has cut more regulations in a short period of time than any other administration during its entire tenure. Companies are coming back to our country in large numbers, thanks to our historic reductions in taxes and regulations. And we have unleashed a revolution in American energy. The United States is now the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world. And now, for the first time in 65 years, we are a net exporter of energy. After 24 months of rapid progress, our economy is the envy of the world. Our military is the most powerful on earth by far. And America is again winning each and every day. Members of Congress, the state of our union is strong. That sounds so good. Our country is vibrant and our economy is thriving like never before. On Friday, it was announced that we added another 304,000 jobs last month alone, almost double the number expected. An economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations. If there is going to be peace and legislation, there cannot be war and investigation. It just doesn't work that way. We must be united at home to defeat our adversaries abroad. This new era of cooperation can start with finally confirming the more than 300 highly qualified nominees who are still stuck in the Senate, in some cases years and years waiting. Not right. The Senate has failed to act on these nominations, which is unfair to the nominees and very unfair to our country. Now is the time for bipartisan action. Believe it or not, we have already proven that that's possible. In the last Congress, both parties came together to pass unprecedented legislation to confront the opioid crisis, a sweeping new farm bill, historic VA reforms, and after 4 decades of rejection, we passed VA accountability so that we can finally terminate those who mistreat our wonderful veterans. And just weeks ago, both parties united for groundbreaking criminal justice reform. They said, last year, I heard through friends the story of Alice Johnson. I was deeply moved. In 1997, Alice was sentenced to life in prison as a first-time nonviolent drug offender. Over the next 22 years, she became a prison minister, inspiring others to choose a better path. She had a big impact on that prison population and far beyond. Alice's story underscores the disparities and unfairness that can exist in criminal sentencing and the need to remedy this total injustice. She served almost that 22 years and had expected to be in prison for the remainder of her life. In June, I commuted Alice's sentence. When I saw Alice's beautiful family greet her at the prison gates, hugging and kissing and crying and laughing, I knew I did something right. Alice is with us tonight, and she is a terrific woman. Terrific. Alice, please. Alice, thank you for reminding us that we always have the power to shape our own destiny. Thank you very much, Alice. Thank you very much. Inspired by stories like Alice's, my administration worked closely with members of both parties to sign the First Step Act into law. Big deal. Big deal. This legislation reformed sentencing laws that have wrongly and disproportionately harmed the African American community. The First Step Act gives nonviolent offenders the chance to re-enter society as productive, law-abiding citizens. Now states across the country are following our lead. America is a nation that believes in redemption. We are also joined tonight by Matthew Charles from Tennessee. In 1996, at the age of 30, Matthew was sentenced to 35 years for selling drugs and related offenses. Over the next 2 decades, he completed more than 30 Bible studies, became a law clerk, and mentored many of his fellow inmates. Now Matthew is the very first person to be released from prison under the First Step Act. Thank you, Matthew. Welcome home. Now, Republicans and Democrats must join forces again to confront an urgent national crisis. Congress has 10 days left to pass a bill that will fund our government, protect our homeland, and secure our very dangerous southern border. Now is the time for Congress to show the world that America is committed to ending illegal immigration and putting the ruthless coyotes, cartels, drug dealers, and human traffickers out of business. As we speak, large, organized caravans are on the march to the United States. We have just heard that Mexican cities, in order to remove the illegal immigrants from their communities, are getting trucks and buses to bring them up to our country in areas where there is little border protection. I have ordered another 3,750 troops to our southern border to prepare for this tremendous onslaught. This is a moral issue. The lawless state of our southern border is a threat to the safety, security, and financial well-being of all America. We have a moral duty to create an immigration system that protects the lives and jobs of our citizens. This includes our obligation to the millions of immigrants living here today who followed the rules and respected our laws. Legal immigrants enrich our nation and strengthen our society in countless ways. I want people to come into our country in the largest numbers ever, but they have to come in legally. Tonight, I'm asking you to defend our very dangerous southern border out of love and devotion to our fellow citizens and to our country. No issue better illustrates the divide between America's working class and America's political class than illegal immigration. Wealthy politicians and donors push for open borders while living their lives behind walls and gates and guards. Meanwhile, working class Americans are left to pay the price for mass illegal immigration. Reduced jobs, lower wages, overburdened schools, hospitals that are so crowded you can't get in, increased crime, and a depleted social safety net. Tolerance for illegal immigration is not compassionate. It is actually very cruel. One in 3 women is sexually assaulted on the long journey north. Smugglers use migrant children as human pawns to exploit our laws and gain access to our country. Human traffickers and sex traffickers take advantage of the wide open areas between our ports of entry to smuggle thousands of young girls and women into the United States and to sell them into prostitution and modern-day slavery. Tens of thousands of innocent Americans are killed by lethal drugs.
Stand up, Nancy. Stand up.
And flood into our cities, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. The savage gang, MS-13, now operates in at least 20 different American states, and they almost all come through our southern border. Just yesterday, an MS-13 gang member was taken into custody for a fatal shooting on a subway platform in New York City. We are removing these gang members by the thousands, but until we secure our border, they're going to keep streaming right back in. Year after year, countless Americans are murdered by criminal, illegal aliens. I've gotten to know many wonderful angel moms and dads and families. No one should ever have to suffer the horrible heartache that they have had to endure. Here tonight is Deborah Bissell. Just 3 weeks ago, Deborah's parents, Gerald and Sharon, were burglarized and shot to death in their Reno, Nevada home by an illegal alien. They were in their 80s and are survived by 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and 20 great-grandchildren. Also here tonight are Gerald and Sharon's granddaughter, Heather, and great-granddaughter, Madison. To Deborah, Heather, Madison, please stand. Few can understand your pain. Thank you, and thank you for being here. Thank you very much.
will never forget, and I will fight for the memory of Gerald and Sharon, that it should never happen again. Not one more American life should be lost because our nation failed to control its very dangerous border. In the last 2 years, our brave ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of criminal aliens, including those charged or convicted of nearly 100,000 assaults, 30,000 sex crimes, and 4,000 killings or murders. We are joined tonight by one of those law enforcement heroes, ICE Special Agent Elvin Hernandez. When Elvin was a boy, he and his family legally immigrated to the United States from the Dominican Republic. At the age of 8, Elvin told his dad he wanted to become a special agent. Today, he leads investigations into the scourge of international sex trafficking. Elvin says that if I can make sure these young girls get their justice, I've really done my job. Thanks to his work and that of his incredible colleagues, more than 300 women and girls have been rescued from the horror of this terrible situation. And more than 1,500 sadistic traffickers have been put behind bars. We will always support the brave men and women of law enforcement. And I pledge to you tonight that I will never abolish our heroes from ICE. Thank you. My administration has sent to Congress a common sense proposal to end the crisis on the southern border. It includes humanitarian assistance, more law enforcement, drug detection at our ports, closing loopholes that enable child smuggling, and plans for a new physical barrier or wall to secure the vast areas between our ports of entry. In the past, most of the people in this room voted for a wall, but the proper wall never got built. I will get it built. This is a smart, strategic, see-through steel barrier, not just a simple concrete wall. It will be deployed in the areas identified by the border agents as having the greatest need. And these agents will tell you where walls go up, illegal crossings go way, way down. San Diego used to have the most illegal border crossings in our country. In response, a strong security wall was put in place. This powerful barrier almost completely ended illegal crossings. The border city of El Paso, Texas, used to have extremely high rates of violent crime, one of the highest in the entire country, and considered one of our nation's most dangerous cities. Now, immediately upon its building, powerful barrier in place, El Paso is one of the safest cities in our country. Simply put, walls work and walls save lives. So let's work together, compromise, and reach a deal that will truly make America safe. As we work to defend our people's safety, we must also ensure our economic resurgence continues at a rapid pace. No one has benefited more from our thriving economy than women, who have filled 58% of the newly created jobs last year. Supposed to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All Americans can be proud that we have more women in the workforce than ever before. Don't sit yet. You're going to like this. And exactly 1 century after Congress passed the constitutional amendment giving women the right to vote, we also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before. That's great. Very good. Congratulations. That's great. As part of our commitment to improving opportunity for women everywhere, this Thursday, we're launching the first ever government-wide initiative focused on economic empowerment for women in developing countries. To build on incredible economic success, one priority is paramount: reversing decades of calamitous trade policies. So bad. We are now making it clear to China that after years of targeting our industries and stealing our intellectual property, the theft of American jobs and wealth has come to an end. Therefore, we recently imposed tariffs on $250 billion of Chinese goods, and now our Treasury is receiving billions and billions of dollars. But I don't blame China for taking advantage of us. I blame our leaders and representatives for allowing this travesty to happen. I have great respect for President Xi, and we are now working on a new trade deal with China. But it must include real structural change to end unfair trade practices, reduce our chronic trade deficit, and protect American jobs. Another historic trade blunder was the catastrophe known as NAFTA. I had met the men and women of Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, New Hampshire, and many other states whose dreams were shattered by the signing of NAFTA. For years, politicians promised them they would renegotiate for a better deal, but no one ever tried until now. Our new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, the USMCA, will replace NAFTA and deliver for American workers like they haven't had delivered to for a long time. I hope you can pass the USMCA into law so that we can bring back our manufacturing jobs in even greater numbers, expand American agriculture, protect intellectual property, and ensure that more cars are proudly stamped with our 4 beautiful words, made in the USA. Tonight, I am also asking you to pass the United States Reciprocal Trade Act so that if another country places an unfair tariff on an American product, we can charge them the exact same tariff on the exact same product that they sell to us. Both parties should be able to unite for a great rebuilding of America's crumbling infrastructure. I know that Congress is eager to pass an infrastructure bill, and I am eager to work with you on legislation to deliver new and important infrastructure investment, including investments in the cutting-edge industries of the future. This is not an option. This is a necessity. The next major priority for me and for all of us should be to lower the cost of health care and prescription drugs, and to protect patients with pre-existing conditions. Already as a result of my administration's efforts in 2018, drug prices experienced their single largest decline in 46 years. But we must do more. It's unacceptable that Americans pay vastly more than people in other countries for the exact same drugs, often made in the exact same place. This is wrong, this is unfair, And together, we will stop it, and we'll stop it fast. I am asking Congress to pass legislation that finally takes on the problem of global freeloading and delivers fairness and price transparency for American patients, finally. We should also require drug companies, insurance companies, and hospitals to disclose real prices to foster competition and bring costs way down. No force in history has done more to advance the human condition than American freedom. In recent years, we have made remarkable progress in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Scientific breakthroughs have brought a once distant dream within reach. My budget will ask Democrats and Republicans to make the needed commitment to eliminate the HIV epidemic in the United States within 10 years. We have made incredible strides, incredible. Together, we will defeat AIDS in America and beyond. Tonight, I am also asking you to join me in another fight that all Americans can get behind, the fight against childhood cancer. Joining Melania in the gallery this evening is a very brave 10-year-old girl, Grace Eline. Every birthday, hi, Grace. Every birthday since she was 4, Grace asked her friends to donate to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. She did not know that one day she might be a patient herself. That's what happened. Last year, Grace was diagnosed with brain cancer. Immediately, she began radiation treatment. At the same time, she rallied her community and raised more than $40,000 for the fight against cancer. When Grace completed treatment last fall, her doctors and nurses cheered. They loved her. They still love her. With tears in their eyes as she hung up a poster that read, "Last day of chemo." Thank you very much, Grace. You are a great inspiration to everyone in this room. Thank you very much. Many childhood cancers have not seen new therapies in decades. My budget will ask Congress for $500 million over the next 10 years to fund this critical life-saving research. To help support working parents, the time has come to pass school choice for American children. Proud to be the first president to include in my budget a plan for nationwide paid family leave so that every new parent has the chance to bond with their newborn child. There could be a greater contrast to the beautiful image of a mother holding her infant child than the chilling displays our nation saw in recent days. Lawmakers in New York cheered with delight upon the passage of legislation that would allow a baby to be ripped from the mother's womb moments from birth. These are living, feeling, beautiful babies who will never get the chance to share their love and their dreams with the world. And then we had the case of the governor of Virginia, where he stated he would execute a baby after birth. To defend the dignity of every person, I am asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit the late-term abortion of children who can feel pain in the mother's womb. Let us work together to build a culture that cherishes innocent life. And let us reaffirm a fundamental truth. All children, born and unborn, are made in the holy image of God. The final part of my agenda is to protect American security. Over the last 2 years, we have begun to fully rebuild the United States military with $700 billion last year and $716 billion this year. We are also getting other nations to pay their fair share. Finally, for years, the United States was being treated very unfairly by friends of ours, members of NATO. But now we have secured, over the last couple of years, more than $100 billion of increase in defense spending from our NATO allies. They said it couldn't be done. The United States is developing a state-of-the-art missile defense system. Under my administration, we will never apologize for advancing America's interests. For example, decades ago, the United States entered into a treaty with Russia in which we agreed to limit and reduce our missile capability. While we followed the agreement and the rules to the letter, Russia repeatedly violated its terms. It's been going on for many years. That is why I announced that the United States is officially withdrawing from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, or INF Treaty. Perhaps we really have no choice. Perhaps we can negotiate a different agreement, adding China and others, or perhaps we can't, in which case we will outspend and out-innovate all others by far. As part of a bold new diplomacy, we continue our historic push for peace on the Korean Peninsula. Our hostages have come home. Nuclear testing has stopped, and there has not been a missile launch in more than 15 months. If I had not been elected President of the United States, we would right now, in my opinion, be in a major war with North Korea. Much work remains to be done, but my relationship with Kim Jong-un is a good one. Chairman Kim and I will meet again on February 27th and 28th in Vietnam. Two weeks ago, the United States officially recognized the legitimate government of Venezuela and its new president, Juan Guaido. We stand with the Venezuelan people in their noble quest for freedom, and we condemn the brutality of the Maduro regime, whose socialist policies have turned that nation from being the wealthiest in South America into a state of abject poverty and despair. Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. Not discredited theories that have failed for decades to yield progress. For this reason, my administration recognized the true capital of Israel and proudly opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. Brave troops have now been fighting in the Middle East for almost 19 years. In Afghanistan and Iraq, nearly 7,000 American heroes have given their lives. More than 52,000 Americans have been badly wounded. We have spent more than $7 trillion in fighting wars in the Middle East. As a candidate for president, I loudly pledged a new approach. Great nations do not fight endless wars. When I took office, ISIS controlled more than 20,000 square miles in Iraq and Syria just 2 years ago. Today, we have liberated virtually all of the territory from the grip of these bloodthirsty monsters. Now, as we work with our allies to destroy the remnants of ISIS, it is time to give our brave warriors in Syria a warm welcome home. I have also accelerated our negotiations to reach, if possible, a political settlement in Afghanistan. The opposing side is also very happy to be negotiating. Our troops have fought with unmatched valor, and thanks to their bravery, we are now able to pursue a possible political solution to this long and bloody conflict. In Afghanistan, my administration is holding constructive talks with a number of Afghan groups, including the Taliban. As we make progress in these negotiations, we will be able to reduce our troops' presence and focus on counter-terrorism, and we will indeed focus on counter-terrorism. We do not know whether we'll achieve an agreement, but we do know that after 2 decades of war, the hour has come to at least try for peace, and the other side would like to do the same thing. It's time. Above all, friend and foe alike must never doubt this nation's power and will to defend our people. 18 years ago, violent terrorists attacked the USS Cole, and last month, American forces killed one of the leaders of that attack. We are honored to be joined tonight by Tom Wibberley, whose son, Navy seaman Craig Wibberley, was one of the 17 sailors we tragically lost. Tom, we vow to always remember the heroes of the USS Cole. Thank you, Craig. My administration has acted decisively to confront the world's leading state sponsor of terror, the radical regime in Iran. It is a radical regime. They do bad, bad things. To ensure this corrupt dictatorship never acquires nuclear weapons, I withdrew the United States from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. And last fall, we put in place the toughest sanctions ever imposed by us on a country. We will not avert our eyes from a regime that chants death to America and threatens genocide against the Jewish people. We must never ignore the vile poison of anti-Semitism or those who spread its venomous creed. With one voice, we must confront this hatred anywhere and everywhere it occurs. Just months ago, 11 Jewish Americans were viciously murdered in an anti-Semitic attack on the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. SWAT officer Timothy Matson raced into the gunfire and was shot 7 times chasing down the killer, and he was very successful. Timothy has just had his 12th surgery, and he's going in for many more. But he made the trip to be here with us tonight. Officer Matson, please. Thank you. We are forever grateful. Thank you very much. Tonight, we are also joined by Pittsburgh survivor, Judah Sabat. He arrived at the synagogue as the massacre began. But not only did Judah narrowly escape death last fall, more than 7 decades ago, he narrowly survived the Nazi concentration camps. Today is Judah's 81st birthday. They wouldn't do that for me, Judah. Judah says he can still remember the exact moment nearly 75 years ago, after 10 months in a concentration camp, when he and his family were put on a train and told they were going to another camp. Suddenly, the train screeched to a very strong halt. A soldier appeared. Judah's family braced for the absolute worst. Then his father cried out with joy, "It's the Americans, it's the Americans." Thank you. A second Holocaust survivor who was here tonight, Joshua Kaufman, was a prisoner at Dachau. He remembers watching through a hole in the wall of a cattle car as American soldiers rolled in with tanks. To me, Joshua recalls the American soldiers were proof that God exists, and they came down from the sky, they came down from heaven. I began this evening by honoring 3 soldiers who fought on D-Day in the Second World War. One of them was Herman Zaitchik. But there is more to Herman's story. A year after he stormed the beaches of Normandy, Herman was one of the American soldiers who helped liberate Dachau. He was one of the Americans who helped rescue Joshua from that hell on earth. Almost 75 years later, Herman and Joshua are both together in the gallery tonight, seated side by side, here in the home of American freedom. Herman and Joshua, your presence this evening is very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you. When American soldiers set out beneath the dark skies over the English Channel in the early hours of D-Day 1944, they were just young men of 18 and 19 hurtling on fragile landing craft toward the most momentous battle in the history of war. They did not know if they would survive the hour. They did not know if they would grow old, but they knew that America had to prevail. Their cause was this nation and generations yet unborn. Why did they do it? They did it for America. They did it for us. Everything that has come since our triumph over communism, our giant leaps of science and discovery, our unrivaled progress towards equality and justice, all of it is possible thanks to the blood and tears and courage and vision of the Americans who came before. Think of this Capitol. Think of this very chamber where lawmakers before you voted to end slavery, to build the railroads and the highways, and defeat fascism, to secure civil rights, and to face down evil empires. Here tonight, we have legislators from across this magnificent republic. You have come from the rocky shores of Maine and the volcanic peaks of Hawaii, the snowy woods of Wisconsin and the red deserts of Arizona, from the green farms of Kentucky and the golden beaches of California. Together we represent the most extraordinary nation in all of history. What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered? I ask the men and women of this Congress, look at the opportunities before us. Our most thrilling achievements are still ahead. Our most exciting journeys still await. Our biggest victories are still to come. We have not yet begun to dream. We must choose whether we are defined by our differences or whether we dare to transcend them. We must choose whether we squander our great inheritance or whether we proudly declare that we are Americans. We do the incredible. We defy the impossible. We conquer the unknown. This is the time to reignite the American imagination. This is the time to search for the tallest summit and set our sights on the brightest star. This is the time to rekindle the bonds of love and loyalty and memory that link us together as citizens, as neighbors, as patriots. This is our future, our fate, and our choice to make. I am asking you to choose greatness. No matter the trials we face, no matter the challenges to come, we must go forward together. We must keep America first in our hearts. We must keep freedom alive in our souls. And we must always keep faith in America's destiny. That one nation, under God, must be the hope and the promise and the light and the glory among all the nations of the world. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
And there you have it, handshakes for Vice President Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House. President Trump in a speech that was just a tad longer than last year, about an hour and 22 minutes. It started with a look back at American history.
Hurrah, Patriots. Thank you for joining. I'm out. I have a story to tell. Not at this moment. Thank you, Patriots. Hurrah.
He called it saying that we must create a new standard of living for the 21st century. He called for stronger families, deeper faith, and greater prosperity.